last year, I think this is the condo completion numbers, somewhere around 20,000 completed last year. Over the last 4 months, so including up to date today, it's something like 23,000 completions. And now you have all these sideline projects because they can't hit their, whatever it is, 70, 75% pre-sales.
Well, you're talking about the fact that projects can't start.
Yeah. Well, I'm framing an outlook, like in terms of where are we going to be? I guess from a supply and demand standpoint, like where will things shake out in a couple of years? It's going to be a rough end of the year. It's going to be tough.
2025 is going to make 2024 look like a cakewalk. Okay, because there's still some low square footage stuff that's coming to completion right now. There's still like $1,000 a square foot that's coming to completion right now, and you might be able to make that work. You might be able to find end users who might be prepared to do that. So here's what we think about, though, by the end of this year, like December completions and November completions, and particularly into 2025, when we're talking about much higher square foot numbers, we're going to talk about the building finishes. The builder calls for people to enter into interim occupancy. The lawyers call other lawyers. It's time for your buyer to come in and write the checks. And what happens if 50% of everyone says, we're not going to write any checks, you can take it back? 50%, got a 400 suite, 200 unit tower, and 200 people say, we're not giving any checks. We're not going to close. What happens?
Well, as we heard last week, 2 weeks ago, a lot of people getting sued by the developer, number one. But price has got to come down.
Okay, let's actually walk through the mechanics of what has to happen. Okay, so what you're referring to is people where 15% of the building won't close.
Right.
So the developer can get an inventory loan, buy those units, come to own those units themselves, form a separate company maybe to own them. And then you can actually convert, the condominium corporation can close now because there's enough units, because there's 85% of the building said, yeah, we'll close. Okay. So we can close it now. The condominium corporation can form, and the developer can be paid off. But most importantly, the first mortgage holder, the mortgage holders can be paid off. Okay. At that point. Okay. What happens when half the building won't close? Can the developer get an inventory loan for half the units? Well, some could, some might. Okay. And some won't. So what happens then?
Yeah. They're in trouble.
Yeah.
And you get, I won't name where it is, but you get a situation like we're seeing right now. One of the big projects it's
called The One. That's what it's called. It's called The One.
Okay. We had him on our podcast. I like the guy a lot. So
Mizrahi?
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be fine.
I'm sure he'll be fine because he's just got to lay low for a few years and then find some more stupid people and the cycle picks up again. But that's fine. I mean, and I don't care. I'm judgment proof, sir. So if you want to send a lawyer's letter, feel free. Okay. But the bottom line is this, but we saw the result. The result is receivership.
Yeah.
Okay. And the lender is willing to take a haircut to get out of it. And there's no takers. Okay. Now let's imagine that 50%, this is a finished building now. I want to really underline that.
Yeah.
It's a completely finished building. It's done. Every suite's finished. It's all, come on in, like move in. Okay. 50% of all unit holders say no. I'm not going to give you the interim occupancy checks. I'm going to decline. You can sue me, do whatever the hell you want. I'm not going to take, because what's happened is if there's a 20% deposit, those people who have figured out that it's down 35%.
Right.
It's 30. My resale value is 35% less. If I have to rent it out, because I already have 2 units and I also have an owner occupied home, if I have to rent it out, I lose $900 a month on a property that's 15% under the value of what 15%. It's worth 15% less than after my deposit's deducted.
Right.
Okay. I'm just not going to close. Okay. So now what happens when the next one of those, because that becomes known, right? Like you can't keep that at a secret. Like eventually that gets out into all kinds of media that's happened. Like 50% of the people said, no, we're not going to close. So that's going to get more people on the next project thinking about not closing. And those people have actually got a higher price per square foot. So eventually so after that one blows up, the next one, 70% of the people won't give the checks for interim occupancy. And you can't get an inventory loan for that. So the finished building must go into receivership. There's no other answer. Okay. How many of those will we have in 2025? Now, everybody says, oh, this fat bastard's just an alarmist. He's always the same thing. The sky is falling. Oh, what's wrong with him? Well, let me address that. What if there are funds full of capital who are interested in this idea? Where there's rich funds, they're saying, well, we should be able to pick up condo suites for 50 cents on the dollar in receivership. What if these very, very sophisticated organizations are already exploring this idea? You said there's opportunity. There's only opportunity for the rich, for the very, very, very sophisticated, because you've got to negotiate yourself through a incredible, massive amount of legal issues. Okay. Potential. How about the 35% that's willing to close? How about the 25% who are saying, no, I'm an end user. I like the building. I like everything about it. I planned for it. I've sold my other condo. I want to move in. And you're telling me the building's in receivership? The hell with you. I'm going to find all the people who want to close, and we're going to do a class action against you because you're just going to rip the price down to nothing. We're going to lose all our value, and we feel that's worth a fight. What happens then? Okay, so look, it'll get resolved. Everything always gets resolved because guess what? This already happened in 1992. This happened on a much smaller scale, okay, at much lower prices. There were 15 condo buildings that could not close because nobody was willing to. Prices had dropped, and prices had dropped 35% in 1992, and some buildings 40, and nobody was willing to take on the units. People, those places are still there, and compared with the prices today, they are ridiculously less. We're talking about a high-priced condo for $200,000. Okay, right. A big one, like 900 square feet. Okay, so yeah, that has happened once already in history, and unless rates fall to an unbelievably low level, it will happen again.
What do you anticipate in terms of? Do you think government will step in to help do anything? Do you think that the immigration inflow will help buffer some of that challenge? Or is it just it's going to be
it's all black stuff.
A white
I think the majority of those international students are paying $750 a month to sleep on a futon in a basement in Scarborough.
Right.
Okay? They're not renting condominiums. Okay, they're not, none of that. So another massive concern has to be, how bad a shape will the economy be in next year to the point where people are just moving back in with their parents, people are couch surfing, people are renting rooms, and there's an actual obvious decline in what people can get for rents on condos. That could happen, right? That's not impossible. So it's a double whammy. It's way overpriced units in a falling rental environment because those students you just talked about, they don't rent condos downtown. They don't rent condos in downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver. They don't. Okay.
It's the 30-person house in Brampton or Scarborough.
Yeah.
Different ones are on the news.
I didn't say Brampton. You did.
That's where all the stories come out.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
so you're trying to recover from this bad news.
Yeah, but there is opportunity.
I tried to have a podcast and a funeral broke out. Look at this.
We got the flower.
Yeah, there's some poor soul listening to this right now who's already closed on a condo or something, or like me selling condos,
or
right?
has a pre-sale that's he has to close on in 8 months
in 2025. Yeah, that sucks. Well, yeah, it's going to be a hard time. So hopefully